So I watched the Joker movie. Yeah, there's a lot going on in that, like crazy amounts of stuff. But let's pick one or two things and kind of harp on it and see if we can't overthink it because, well, that's what we do. Roll that intro. So ultimately, when it comes to the Joker, I guess the very first thing we need to ask ourselves is it a political movie as it's been constantly referenced as over the several weeks before it's come out? Yes, but not political in the idea of elections and people and people's ideology. It's actually dealing with the politics of recognition. And that's a very key thing. And that's what we're going to kind of harp on today. If you haven't figured it out yet, I'm going to spoil the hell out of this movie. So, you may want to watch it and come back. Actually, you could probably watch this as well and probably pick up on some of these things because it was just masterfully and beautifully done. First, lots of reference in this movie. It's a lot of source material from ages of Batman stuff being thrown in here. I loved the late 70s, early 80s vibe of a dark, dirty, and we'll just go ahead and say New York at this point, because that's where the garbage strike eventually happened in the time frame too. That was also referenced in the movie. I thought that was really good. It was really smart because that was kind of a pushing point in New York at that point for social injustice and the downtrodden and things along those lines, which are heavily referenced in this movie as well. But back to the politics of being recognized, it's actually a philosophical point. It's not really a political thing. It often means, well, I guess Jean Jarriere, modern philosopher, probably put it the best when he ultimately said that the state of being recognized is what ultimately inculcates us into a political system. That's really fancy for saying because we are and we can be involved, we should be. Think of politics like this. Yes, you have the building of bridges and roads and streets and stuff like that, right? But to be a politician, you have to be recognized by several groups and voted on and liked and all this other stuff. Well, when nobody recognizes you as a person or you as your group, you tend to get a little upset and you want to push back a little bit. I thought this is where the Joker movie really expressed itself. In 2 hours, we watched a man's descent into madness. A simple man that just wanted to bring some laughter to people, but he wasn't very good at it. Therefore, maybe his grandioso idealism of him being a comedian couldn't really match up to the talents that he actually had. That's scary. I'm generally in the camp of thought that you can't be taught to do any job. Some people just have certain skills, whether it's been homed or they spent 10,000 hours in it. But obviously, the Joker thought that it was good enough just to write things down in a book, maybe even steal some other people's material or the presentation of that material, which we saw in the book. And the book is interesting because it actually plays more of a diary to him than it does anything else. I thought that was powerful to some degree. Some other unusual aspects of this movie is it plays heavily on entertainment, right? Entertainment in the sense of, okay, so the Joker wants to be an entertainer. He's a clown. He wants to spread love and joy and all this other stuff. But the truth is he's still being used as entertainment by several people. Example, why the kids were beating him down in an alley. They're laughing and having fun with that. His unusual mental condition that causes him to laugh at in inappropriate times was amusing and interesting to the rich kids or rich adults. I'm going to go ahead and say they're younger than me, so they were kids. On the subway, the Murray Show used his tape as sort of like a joke, right? It was entertaining to his entertaining crowd. And he wanted to benefit off of that by having it done again. Needless to say, that didn't work out too well. And it was so much to the point, even with his own mother, right? Didn't really recognize him, but the opportunity that he afforded her by saying that it was Thomas Wayne's son, right? That was ridiculous. And of course, he placates by trying to be entertaining, and he can't entertain anybody. Notice when he was meeting young Batman, uh, he wasn't very entertained with all the little antics and everything that he was trying to do. He definitely bombed as being a comedian up on a stage. So, at what point, as we're watching this motif of just an orchestrated turmoil disaster in 2 hours. I'm glad that they stayed away from the just one day or one bad day scenario, right? Because when you're dealing with mental illness, it is a gradual thing as the medications leave your system, and he was heavily medicated, so they're probably in a system. So we got to see a span of time, and it just slowly get worse and worse and worse. One good example of this, in fact, is his dancing. For the longest time, he would only dance in his costume out on the road. But notice when he was dancing in privately by himself, it was a very different dance. He was trying to add grace where there was no grace. And then eventually his entire dancing style completely changed when he finally took on the persona of the Joker. His dancing down the steps and very grandioso gestures, a lot of hand movements, just wanting to be bigger than life, kind of like a clown or an entertainer overall. Not only he wants that in reality now, but still no recognition. Then he also falls in love with the idea of the one thing he did, shooting the kids on the train and what it pushed. And that was absolutely amazing. I just thought that was so poignant. It really did speak. Um, so yeah, all in all, I would have to give this movie just high regards and high marks. I thought the dialogue in it was great. It fitted the time, that's for sure. I'm slightly older, so I remember like the early 80s. Yeah, the music, the dirty city, even the way that it was shot was very reminiscent of great movies like The Network, The Graduate. And I would say a lot of themes were taken from that as well, which, by the way, are good movies. You should look them up. Network and The Graduate. By the way, if you don't know what The Graduate is, I almost feel sorry for you. So, yeah, watch that. So yeah, overall, if I had to go back and watch the movie again, I could probably pull out like a dozen other things alone. So all in all, why was this movie so speaking? Well, I'll share a quick story with you, and I promise not to take too much of your time. I had to do an internship while I was going through college, and they tried to place me in a place that I would best fit in because the goal was that I would get some $24,000 job at one of these places, and that never happened. But one of the places I ended up going to, well, two of them actually, that I found particularly interesting, was one I was in a state-ran mental institution, and I was there to kind of shadow the counselors and the staff and things like that. And I distinctly remember some of the patients when they felt anxious, right? Laughter was something you would hear a lot, even going into crying was very profoundly heard up and down the hallways. It was a very common theme, especially when medications were off or they were off their medications. This was something that would happen. It's kind of disturbing. Like, I'm not even trying to be funny at this point. Um, so you see that, but you would also see a lot of dancing. And we just broadly called it dancing. Sometimes it would be somebody, going back and forth and up and down, or it would be outright landish movements and gracioso because they're looking for not really attention, but they just want to be recognized inside of the herd. And I know that's a horrible way to put that, but when a bunch of people are clumped together, they're generally treated the same, and humans don't like that. So I always found that very interesting, and unfortunately, I had to leave that particular institution because apparently my being there really triggered some people. I'm a very abrupt person. If you've ever met me in person, you know I'm kind of a jerk. So then they were like, okay, well, we'll stick you in this maximum security prison. It was a maximum security level 4 prison. And so I got to shadow, and I got to work with veterans in there, which was really great. But in between my meetings with veterans and stuff like that, receiving counseling, I would be out in the yard, and I would see a lot of the same things that I would see at the state-ran institution. So that was really an eye-opener for me. And the scariest part of it is you see a lot of the actions, and you can actually see some of the thought process as it's being put into this movie. That's how much detail this thing went into. from the delusion of having a relationship to the please see me scenario that's constantly being run through it. I'm wearing makeup, I'm being bright, to everything else. It really, 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 truly spoke to mental illness. People are calling this a political movie. I think it should be a mental illness awareness movie because that would be more accurate. So, yeah, absolutely love this movie. Some people say it's a little slow in the beginning, but that's because we're watching a mental dissension, if you will, that slow, gradual to it, and then you all achieving screw it moment, like everything's a joke. Uh, that's hard. That's and mind you, I'm the guy who always spoke on. I don't think the Joker needs a backstory. I think he would just ruin. I've said this, and it's good to be proven wrong. And I was absolutely wrong. I was so scared that they would just ruin the Joker in this. As a matter of fact, I'll even say this, and please comment down below if you could kind of see this too, or maybe I'm just way off. Please feel free to comment down below. But if we took the Joker we saw now, and we take the Keith Ledger Joker, right, from the Dark Knight series, if we took the Dark Knight Joker and we made that cat, I don't know, 60 years old, late 50s, early 60s, right, because he was always hunched over and kind of walked, all right, and then we take the Joker we have now, you could actually see that progression of that being the same character to some degree, right? I mean, just it's so weird. Um, Yeah, so I really enjoyed that movie. That was great. Just for some other quick, real quick reviews, real quick. Batwoman, not as cringy as I thought, but still stupid. They stole a lot of different things from a lot of different other DC movies, and it just didn't fit very well. But all in all, it was the pilot issue, so I can forgive that. Their Joker type character making a regular person make a moral decision. We've seen that with the Joker and the bomb and the boats. I thought that was just a little too obvious. The constant Zorro being flashed movie night out in the yard, and they're playing a black and white Zorro movie today. Yeah, we get it. You tried. And the contrast of having a negative of the hero being the sister. Superwoman, I don't know what they're doing with that. That is just a mess. It was so hard to follow. Nothing made sense. Her new suit, it takes it longer to materialize on her than it would be for her to just change her clothes really quick. Like she has super speed, right? This thing like took forever. And I don't know. This is weird. Flash was okay. Typical superhero story. We may have an origin story of somebody in the future here. Rather, he goes. I would imagine he would go good. It was because he seemed like a good guy. Those are the best bad guys. So yeah, those were pretty good. Just dumb, mind-numbing. Watching TV one night, I wasn't feeling very well, and I just kind of blew through those. So, I don't know. What did you think about the Joker movie? Or what are your expectations from the Joker if he was to ever be back in cinematic? What did you think of the movie? And did they do a good job? Or should they just give it a different title and be something else? Definitely comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe because that just makes me blush and allows me to brag to all my friends here that people actually know me and listen to me. I have a sad existence. Okay, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.